I would like to introduce our speaker, Arbaina Kawilan. She is a TEDx speaker and creator of the Emotional Alchemy framework. She speaks on emotional regulation, resilience, and self-trust for people building careers under pressure. Her work draws from lived experience inside high-stakes systems and focuses on practical tools professionals use to stay grounded, make clear decisions, and lead without burnout. Arbaina, we are extremely honored to have you with us today, and the stage is all yours.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Violina, for that introduction. And thank you, everyone, for having me. Thank you all for being here. So, we all talk about what we are building, but it is not often that we talk about who we become while we're building it. And this session is not about doing more, this is about how we stay ourselves while we're building things that matter. My name is Arbaina Kawilan. Like Violina said, I am the creator of Emotional Alchemy framework. And I gave a TEDx talk about this work a few months ago. I will share my links in previous later slides if you need to find that. If you need to watch the talk, I'd be happy to share. Emotional alchemy wasn't created as a concept or a theory. It came out of lived necessity. I needed a way to stay grounded when circumstances were uncertain. And over time, it became something I could rely on. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. To talk about staying regulated, we first have to notice how pressure actually shows up. Because before tools or practices, there's recognition. Most people think that they are not stressed. They think that they're just busy or responsible or committed. But staying regulated begins with awareness, with being honest about what's happening inside and without trying to change it yet. I'm going to name a few pressure. I'm going to name a few ways that pressure often shows up. And as I go through them, I want you to notice what feels familiar. First of them being the constant urgency. So for a lot of us, urgency did not start at work. It started much earlier in our homes, in how we were raised, in environments where being alert and useful or being responsive mattered. I don't know how much of you can relate to me, but me growing up as an Asian, there is always that sense of duty, like helping out my parents, paying attention to everything that's happening around me, and moving quickly. It became the norm of our life every single day. And for some people, the urgency meant like they're staying out of trouble, or it meant that they need to be watchful because something might go wrong if they don't. It also meant that you are taking responsibility early. And that one hits home for me. For others, just really being paying attention to everything that's going on, including your parents' mood, so you can prepare yourself how you approach. So, when I say constant urgency, I don't mean stress as a choice. I mean it is a pattern that our body learned. That's why even when nothing is on fire, our body still acts like something is because it was conditioned to. You might notice it in how quickly you respond or how hard it is for you to slow down. And for me, how I feel like rest is so underserved, or I had to earn it before I can actually rest. The other thing that a pressure shows up for is a tight body. This one doesn't feel very emotional. It feels just normal. Like your shoulders are always up high, like this, next to your ears, or your jaw's tight while you're typing an email and you don't realize it. Or your breathing never fully settles until you finish that email or coding that you're supposed to do. Nothing extreme, just low level bracing. And again, most of us had this tension in our body that didn't start at work. For many people, our body learned to stay alert because this was useful. This is literally the fight or flight mode that our body put us into. Maybe you had to help out a lot as a kid, like I mentioned earlier, or maybe you had to pay attention to other people's moods. Your parents, you have to feel the room, you have to read it. Or maybe you learned to stay ready so nothing go wrong. Your body adapted. So when pressure shows up, your nervous system does what it is designed to do. It tightens, it prepares you, and it keeps you ready. And that is not weakness. That is how we survive. And the issue isn't the body tightness. It is that sometimes it never fully lets go. So when things are calm, you're slightly braced, and when your body stays tight for long periods of time, it affects how clearly you think and how patient you feel and how much energy decisions take. And this leads you to difficulty of slowing down. Though it is very different from having a tight body because this isn't a physical tension, it is really hard to feel. It is really hard for you to actually slow down. Even you don't have anything going on. You've answered all the emails, you've done all the work of the day. You're finally home about to have your glass of wine, but still, it feels like you have not done enough. Even when you take a time off, it feels like you're always on, or you need to finish a task immediately and then look for the next one. I'm very much guilty of this. And it's not because someone is forcing me, but because stopping feels uncomfortable. For a lot of us, slowing down wasn't taught. Maybe productivity was praised. As an Asian, in my household at least, the more you do, the better child you are. The busier you are, the more valuable you are. And taking a break felt a little bit lazy for them. So my nervous system learned to always keep moving. And when you've been in that motion for a long time, stillness can feel unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Your body literally says, "Oh my God, what is going on? I'm not used to this. I'm used to being go, 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 go." So you check one more thing, you answer one more email, you answer one more Slack message from your boss or your colleague. You plan the next step before the current one is even finished. Again, this isn't about discipline, it's about conditioning. If your nervous system is used to activation, calmness can feel a lot stranger. And when slowing down feels difficult, it becomes really hard to fully reset, which means the pressure is never released from your body. And now that leads you to decisions feeling heavier than they used to. You're still capable, you're still smart, you still know what you're doing, but decisions feel heavier. This shows up for me in overthinking. And I say that, I'm just like, oh, maybe I'm just overthinking, or maybe I'm just tired, or maybe I'm having a decision overload. Things that used to feel straightforward, like choosing your breakfast in the morning or what type of creamer you wanted to use today, now takes a lot more mental effort. This could also look like drafting a message and rereading it 3 times. You go back and forth to the things that takes you one glance and you're good to go. You question yourself more. And it's not that you don't know how to decide, it's that your system is carrying more than it used to. When your urgency stays high and the body stays tight, your brain is already working harder in the background. Pressure uses bandwidth. So every one of you guys would understand this. You all work on computers. I am probably the least expert on this matter, but if you think about a computer processor, when you have too many programs running in the background or at once, nothing crashes immediately, but it does slow down. It still works, but it does slow down. So the decisions take longer, tasks feel heavier, and simple things require more effort. It's not that the computer forgot how to function, it is just it's handling more load. And it's similar with us. When pressure had been running in the background for a while, your system is already processing a lot. So even normal decisions can take feel bigger than they used to. Again, not because you're less capable, but because more is running under the surface. So we just talk about how pressure shows up. Now let's talk about what happens when it doesn't stop. Because pressure itself isn't the problem, it keeps running. And when the pressure runs for too long, the first thing that usually fades is clarity. Again, you're still smart and capable, but things don't feel as clear. You now go back to your messages more, you sit with the decisions longer, and you feel less sure, even know, even that you don't know, even when you know what you're doing. And now the decisions are heavier, not because you forgot how to decide, but because your system is tired. The best way that I could put it is this. I feel like I have ADHD, but I'm self-diagnosed. So this is how I look at it. It feels like I have too many tabs open in my brain. So instead of me actually focusing on the next task that I need to do, I have all these things lingering in my head and everything is now slowed down because I couldn't pick a task. Everything takes more effort because instead of having one goal to finish, I now have all these 10 tabs open that I would like to go through all at once. And when this happens, when the decisions are heavier, my self trust is now quieter because now I am questioning myself if I could actually do this. I double check myself more. I look for reassurance and I hesitate. Not because I am incapable, but because I am overloaded. And the body keeps track of all of this. I don't know if you are familiar with the book. There's actually a book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. I'm happy to share that on the chat later on. Hopefully, I'm not butchering his name. But while the book goes deeper into trauma, the core idea is simple. The body remembers what the mind tries to push through. And I learned that the hard way. Just 2 months ago, I kept ignoring the tensions that I have on my shoulders. And that was because I was typing these emails, I was so tense, and I just need to finish everything all at once so I could go on my winter vacation. I told myself I was fine. I kept pushing. I said if I could just send this email one more time, if I could do this one more time. I kept pushing. I kept working. I kept responding quickly and showing up for others while ignoring myself. Until one morning, I woke up and I literally could not turn my head left and right. I had to take an emergency day off. Not because I was burned out, but because my body forced me to stop. And that's the moment I realized I knew better. My body was telling me, it was giving me signals, and I just kept ignoring it. I kept telling myself I could handle it until my body made the decision for me. And I know I'm not alone in this. I know that there's a lot of instances where we kept pushing through, and our body literally said, you know what? You're done. You're done. You're overworking me, and you're done. So, when we talk about staying regulated while building big things, this is what we're protecting: clarity, self trust, and most importantly, our body, not just our productivity. So, if that's what pressure slowly chips away at, the question becomes, what do we actually do with that? Because pressure in tech isn't going anywhere. Your ambitions isn't going anywhere. Deadlines are for sure not going anywhere. And most of us don't want them to. We care about what we're building. So it isn't about stepping away from big things. It's about learning how to stay regulated while we build them. That's where emotional alchemy comes in. It was something simple I kept noticing in my life. Whenever I felt overwhelmed or tight in my body or off, the shift always started the same way. First, acknowledgement, then transmutation, and commitment to small wins. And they're simple on purpose because under stress, simple works. So, acknowledgement. Acknowledgement means naming what's happening internally without fixing it. And this one is neurological. There's a research from UCLA on something called affect labeling. When participants simply name their emotional state, like, I feel anxious, activity in the amygdala decreased. The amygdala is our brain threats detector. And at the same time, activity increased in the prefrontal cortex. That part is responsible for reasoning and decision making. So when you say overwhelmed, whether voicing it out loud or just thinking about it, when you recognize what is happening to you, when you say you're overwhelmed, you're you're not indulging yourself, you're shifting your brain activation. You're moving from reactivity toward regulation. And in tech specifically, we skip this. We jump to solving. Because if you try to solve a dysregulated state, but if you try to resolve from a dysregulated state, your thinking narrows. Under stress, your brain prioritizes speed over nuance. That's great if you're running from danger, which is literally what we're supposed to do. It's not great when you're drafting a message back to your team. When somebody said something off key for you because you're already stressed out and you read the tone differently, our initial reaction is to react rather than sit with ourselves and asking ourselves, why am I reacting this way? They're asking me for a thing that I'm supposed to give them at this time of day. Why am I reactive? Most of the time, it's probably because you're under stress already. And them sending that email to you or a Slack message to you just adds up to whatever's going on internally. So acknowledgement widens the lens again. Even 5% more clarity matters. And again, acknowledgement can sound so simple. You can think it, you can voice it out loud. For me, voicing it out loud is more effective. I just say, oh my God, I'm rushing, or I am tense. This is a lot. And that's it. You don't have to give solution to it right away because awareness alone begins the regulation. So now what do we do? Obviously, we cannot just acknowledge things and not do something about it. So when something is acknowledged, the next step is letting it move. In my life, transmutation meant turning my fears into action, my shame into clarity, and the pain that I felt into motion. Not because those emotions disappeared, but because I refused to let them freeze me. And the same principle applies here. Once you've named what's happening, I am tense, I am overwhelmed, this is a lot. The next step isn't to suppress it. Do not push it down. Because if you do, it just piles up and it will then go through the cycle that you'll feel in your body more and more and in your brain. It's to let it move because emotions are physiological waves. Research suggests that chemical surge of an emotional response lasts roughly to 60 to 90 seconds in the body. After that, what keeps stress alive is rumination, the stories that we attach to whatever that stress we felt. So when pressure hits you, your heart rate increases, your muscles tighten, your jaw probably is now clenching, and your breathing shortens. That's your sympathetic nervous system activation. It's your body preparing you how to respond. The problem isn't that activation happens. The problem is when we clamp down on it or replay it for hours. Transmutation is allowing your body to complete that cycle instead of suppressing it. And this is backed by vagus nerve research. Longer exhales, which usually works for me when a Karen sent me out an email that they need something right away. Obviously, when you read that, my first initial reaction will be, I don't need to get this to you right away. Also, you can calm down. But then I realized I could also calm down. The way that I react is not on other people. The way that I react is on me. The way that I regulate my nervous system is on me. One thing that works a lot is longer exhales. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your body's brake pedal. So when you have longer exhales, it literally regulates your heart rate, calms your body right away, and it doesn't take more than 2 minutes, actually. So, as simple as this can shift your body out of threat mode. You don't need a full entire meditation session. You just need a shift. Drop your shoulders, lengthen your exhales, pause before replying to a Karen, let the wave pass. That's transmutation. Sometimes it also is very important to just get out of your desk, stand up, walk around for 30 minutes or so. If you have a nice weather outside, take a 5-minute break and walk around. Moving our body literally transmutes what it feels on the inside. And once the activation settles, you can redirect the energy. Your fear now becomes preparation. Your frustration now becomes boundary setting. So instead of me being frustrated to Karen that needs the thing immediately when she doesn't, I am now setting a boundary that, hey, I have work to do, but yes, I will get this to you after I have done the things that are more that needs my attention right away. You're not turning stress into confidence. You're allowing stress to finish and then deciding when the energy does. When all of that finishes, your clarity returns. And the clarity is what lets you build without losing yourself. Now, what do we do when clarity returns? Even a little. You're faced with something important, a choice. Because awareness without action can turn into overthinking. The calmness without direction can stall. So, this is where the third part comes in: commitment to small wins. Not big reinventions, not a total reset, just one grounded step. Because when your nervous system has been under pressure, it doesn't need intensity, it needs stability. And a small win creates stability. There is a research in behavioral psychology showing that completing even small tasks releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to motivation and forward momentum. So when you're completing something, even something minor, your brain registers progress. One of my favorite things to do is always having a notepad right next to me and just breaking down the task that I have to do in the smallest way possible. And that is just me brain dumping, so I don't overpopulate my brain with all the tabs that I talked about earlier. But also, me checking off the things on that checklist gives me that dopamine, gives me that self trust again that, oh, I could actually do this without overthinking about it. And that progress reduces your stress, not because your workload disappears, but because your nervous system feels agency again. It feels like it is in control again. So instead of asking yourself, how do I fix everything all at once, which I normally would do, you ask yourself, what is the next clear move? That could mean sending that message. That could mean clarifying the requirement of the project that you need to work on, or choosing the decision. What creamer you need to use tomorrow. Also, removing a decision dilemma from yourself by preparing yourself ways that you could. For me, working out in the morning is harder when I don't have my workout outfits laid out in the evening. So it is just me trying to create a roadblock for myself if I don't do that. If I laid out everything at night, I am more it is at least 80 to 20%, 80 versus 20% of me working out rather than not. Choose that one anchored step, and that is your commitment to small wins. One thing that works well for me as well, again, is the writing down the tasks that are lingering in my head. And every time I finish something, just checking that off, and it closes the loop that I have in my head mentally. Doing them one by one, checking them off one by one. And there's something very simple about that, but also very powerful. The small completion that I have every single time rebuilds my self trust. And self trust is what allows you to build big things without burning out. I mean, an entire app is not built by just pushing everything all at once. You have steps to follow through. I feel like, again, I'm not the expert on how that goes, but I'm pretty sure every task is broken down into a smaller task so it can move forward and get to the bigger tasks. Now that we've talked about the framework, the acknowledgement, transmutation, and commitment to small wins, let's talk about what this actually looks like. It is the moment you're noticing yourself that you've been holding on to your breath while working. It's the moment you realize that you've reread the same message 3 times without knowing how to respond, or the moment your shoulders are up your ears and don't even notice. That's it. That's where this lives. You don't stop working, you don't step away from your ambition. You just pause internally for a second. You think or you say, okay, I am rushing. You drop your shoulders a little, you take one slower breath, and then you ask yourself, what is the clear next step? Not the entire fix, just the clear next step. Again, that could look like sending that one message, clarifying that requirement, or like I mentioned earlier, even standing up for 30 seconds. Also, never underestimate the power of drinking water. It is small, but what just happened is important. You didn't override your body, you didn't ignore the signals that you were feeling, and you didn't escalate internally. You stayed with yourself while continuing the work. And that is the point. Staying regulated while building big things doesn't mean lowering your standards. It means not abandoning yourself in the process. We started today by talking about pressure, and I want to be clear, pressure isn't the enemy, especially in tech. Pressure often means you're building something that matters. You care, you're trusted, and you're solving real problems. And we thank you guys for that. And that's not something that we want to remove in our lives. What we're talking about isn't eliminating pressure. It's eliminating unconscious dysregulation. Pressure is inevitable. Pressure is often a great driving force to achieve the goals we set for ourselves. Again, your deadlines aren't going anywhere. Your ambition isn't going anywhere. Growth isn't going anywhere. I hope that you don't want them to go anywhere. But dysregulation, living in constant urgency, tightness, or mental overload, that part is optional. Optional doesn't mean easy, it means it's trainable. And regulation is a skill. And like any skill, it does get stronger with repetition. Every time you name what's happening instead of ignoring it, and let the wave move instead of suppressing it, and choose one grounded step instead of spiraling, you are building capacity within yourself. You're not becoming less ambitious, you're becoming more sustainable. And high performance without sustainability isn't high performance. It's just a sprint. And sprints are tiring. Most of you are not building sprints. You guys are building careers, teams, products, and systems that evolve and help the world. That requires your clarity. That requires your self trust. And that requires a nervous system that isn't constantly in a threat mode. So when we say high performance requires regulation, I mean precision. I mean being able to think clearly under pressure. And I mean being able to make decisions without overthinking them into exhaustion. I mean being able to go home at night without your body still being braced for something that already ended and actually enjoy your glass of wine. That's the real advantage. It doesn't start with an entire life overhaul. It starts with a moment. You acknowledge it, you let it move, and you take one grounded step. That's emotional alchemy in practice. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Arbaina. It was amazing talk, and I have so many things to share and ask. I just wanted to check quickly on the chat. Do we have any questions? Please do post your questions on the chat. It was very nice to understand how we can work with ourselves. Do you have any advice for your first overcoming pressure, and how did you handle it?
So, to give you a little bit of background on how this came about, the emotional alchemy, uh, not to bring everyone's mood down, I was actually stranded in a homeless shelter after a after a very traumatic experience with my ex-husband. I was in a domestic violence shelter in a foreign country without having anything. So at that point, I was still falling victim to everything that is going on around me without realizing that I had this agency within me all throughout. But I kept on giving that, I kept on outsourcing that strength within me. So that pressure, how did I overcome it? Is by choosing. You always have the choice to do something for yourself and not let the world around you affect you. Because the things that are happening around you, you cannot control. But how you respond to it, that's what you can control. And that's the important thing I feel like that is very timely as well in the moment. I'm not saying that do not live in your current environment, but I'm also saying that everything that you cannot control, you don't have and you cannot do anything about it. What you can control is how you can react to it. So when it comes to stressful situations, I do see them as gifts for me to turn this around in my favor, and a gift for me to learn something new. And it's a shift of perspective for me, is what helped a lot. And a chance for me to get to know myself a little better on what can I do, on how this human form of me can do in this world. That's, I feel like, is very spiritual, but also it's always a choice for me, a shift in perspective.
It's a very great perspective, actually. You are the writer of your own story. Uh, Thank you for the great talk. Actually, we have another question in the chat. Are there any practical books, not fluffy theory, about nervous system regulation or stress management for high performers?
Yes. So I feel like before you have to go through the basics. So the book that I mentioned earlier when I was discussing it, The Body Keeps the Score, that's one thing. And I will water. I cannot do this. Please stop. There we go. The body keeps the score is one of them, and then great at work is one of them as well. I have not been reading this as much, but it is on my Audible actually. And there is high performance habits, which is highly recommended by my reading coach.
Thank you so much. Do you, anybody need to be posting a chat or they already write it down? Your story is very inspiring, and I feel like you always have to go through some tough and rough part of your life to become such an inspirational person, and that you're giving back and you're supporting women in technology. It's amazing.
Thank you. And when I started this journey, everyone was saying, I could never do that. I could never be as vulnerable as you are. And I feel like, again, it will always become a choice because I have felt so alone in those times in my life. And I don't want others to feel the same way. And I think that is the drive that is forcing me to do this, even though I am really scared right now. I am really scared right now. And it's it's that. I feel like we all have a reason. You guys have a reason for creating this community, obviously. And it's the same thing for me. When you know the why, the how becomes easy.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Thank you for the support. Very people were very amazed by your talk, very supportive words. Tiffany said 100% identity with this. Part of me is always scanning the environment and having to earn rest, not be lazy.
Mhm.
Yeah, we all related with the tight deadlines, with the stress and how we present and how we relate. It was very, very nice to hear that we can just have this 5 minutes walk outside and come back us to ourselves. Thank you for all the suggestion, advices, and small win talks and small wins every day. It's very important for us,
It's
for all
very
of us.
important.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. Well, I don't see many questions. Oh, Anna. She said, "Thank you. I feel better already. I had not noticed. Was testing my shoulders before the talk. I can't wait for the recording to share with my husband. He needs to hear this too." Yeah,
I'm so glad to hear that. And yes, just small things that we notice. This one is just going back to yourself and listening to your body and what your body is telling you before you actually ended up going a on an day off like me because I couldn't do that. I it is for us to become productive, we have to protect the body that gives us that privilege.
it's amazing. And thank you for inspiring us. And I'm sure that everyone took something from this talk. And we hope to see you in the future again. Arbaina, thank you. It was a pleasure to have you with us.